Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the greatest show on earth, Property Pro Tips straight from the pros. And today we have an absolute celebrity with us in our midst, Tom Bannon, CEO of the California Apartment Association. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, thank you, Trevor, for having me. This is great.
It's an honor to have you on the show, sir. Just for the sake of the cause, let me read the bio real quick. And I know we want to jump into the content on this because we have some very serious things to speak about out here. So for those who do not know, Tom Bannon is the CEO of the California Apartment Association, the largest statewide trade organization for apartment professionals and owners. He has led the CAA to become a key player in legislative advocacy and compliance across California, seeing the largest apartment political action committee in the U.S. Before his role at the CAA, Bannon served as staff director to Congressman Robert Matsui. Did I say that correctly? Matsui?
You did. You got it.
And held leadership positions at the California Building Industry Association and the California Association of Realtors. His leadership continues to shape policy for the apartment industry statewide. Welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction, Trevor. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for fighting the good fight, my friend.
Okay.
So, jumping right in, we have an election coming up here in not so long, 2024. Big topic, Prop 33. Let's jump right in. We're going to jump right into this and tell everybody how you feel and about it and how the California Apartment Association is going about it. Start a little bit with the background.
Well, look, first of all, Prop 33 would repeal a state law that has been in place for 25 years that basically limits local government's ability to adopt extreme or radical rent control. And that law is Costa-Hawkins. And Costa-Hawkins really does three or four things, Trevor. The first thing it does is it limits, once again, local governments from adopting extreme rent control. The first thing it does is it says that single-family homes, townhouses, condos, anything that's separately alienable cannot be placed under rent control. That's number one. Number two, what it says is that should a local government adopt rent control, your property can't be placed under rent control, and local government can say what your annual rent adjustments would be each year. But what happens is that once there's a change in tenancy, that unit can then go to market. But you will still fall under rent control, but the basis has changed. And that is incredibly important because prior to Costa-Hawkins, places like San Francisco, Berkeley, you had situations where you had long-term tenants and rents may have been at $500 a month or whatever it is. And once there's a change of tenancy, the basis didn't change. The basis was still $500. So vacancy decontrol, critically important, now means that once that unit is vacant, you can move to market. So that's what it did. The other thing it did was it said that any units that were built after 1995 would be exempt from rent control. And the idea there is obviously you want to encourage development.
Development, right.
So that was called the new construction exemption. But the other thing that's really, really important is for places like Santa Monica, Los Angeles, Berkeley, San Francisco, where rent control was adopted in the late 70s, early 80s, when they put their local ordinances in place, they basically said, well, we're going to exempt buildings that were built, after 1978, 79, whenever that rent control measure was put in place. The other thing Costa-Hawkins did was it said, local governments, you cannot change your new construction exemption. So that way, buildings that were built were still exempt from rent control. So critically important for the industry. Probably more than you want to know, Trevor, but hopefully that hopefully that explained a little bit.
And go into a little more detail on what gross, crazy rent control is. Like when you say that when cities can
Sure.
adopt their own crazy rent control, or I think the operative
Yeah.
word you said was like super gross stringent rent control. What does
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah, we call it extreme or radical rent
Extreme. Okay.
control. And I mean, those are the cases where, like, you have Santa Monica and Berkeley, where prior to Costa-Hawkins, you basically had one, nobody was going to be building anything new because they were very concerned that the local government could, that Santa Monica or Berkeley would change their mind. I'm just picking on those two because one's Northern California, one's Southern California. But the other thing that happened was
Santa
that
Monica is a good example. Is a very
okay,
good
yeah, okay,
example.
perfect, perfect, great, great. But what happened is that you had folks that once a tenant moved out of a unit, that unit was still under the same rent control, the same basis. So somebody could be living in Berkeley and paying, once again, $500 a month. And 5 years, 6 years later, they move out. And by the way, the rent increase was 0.75%. That's the
Wow.
most you could raise your rent. And so that $500 unit was only seeing, 0.75% increase every year. That tenant would move out, and the owner could not move that unit to market rate, which the market rate then was probably going to be, $800, whatever
Right.
it was. And so what Costa-Hawkins did was it said, Berkeley, Santa Monica, you cannot do vacancy control, which means when there's a change in vacancy,
Mhm.
you can no longer control the basis. You can still control the annual rent increase, but that owner basically can never move the market to fair market value. And so that particular component of extreme and radical rent control is very problematic, very problematic.
And this strikes me. This is so crazy to me, thinking that this is even on the table because it sounds like it's absolutely anti-capitalism. You're telling owners what they can charge. It's like telling Nike what they can charge for Air Jordans.
Yeah, it's, what I would say, Trevor, is that there is clearly a movement there, across the country, and you can look at New York, you can look at California, you can even look at St. Paul, Minnesota, and there is a movement and there is a belief. I'm now convinced that, you know, that private property, as we think about it, there are folks that do not believe in that type of private property. They do not believe that people should be making money off the property that they own and and the housing that they provide.
Wow.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. That if you really want to look at something interesting, you can go online, and I think they're called the Democratic Socialists of America. I mean, their platform.
Democratic Socialists of America.
Yeah, I mean, and they really do believe that there should be no capitalism in the rental housing industry. I don't know how you're
Wow.
going to provide housing, but
Right.
that is kind of a move. And people just have to accept that reality that pushes coming. It's almost like they want to make housing a utility, right? I mean,
Right. I
it's
mean, if they want that, I can recommend a couple countries they can move to. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you talk about different countries, and I don't know whether you caught this, but in Argentina, they had rent control. And
countrywide. I don't think I did.
yeah, in Argentina,
Countrywide. Wow.
countrywide, and the housing situation was abysmal. I mean, there was lack of housing, there was deteriorating housing. They just had a change in their administration, and they did away with rent control. And literally, almost overnight, people started building, units started getting, updated.
Renovated. Right.
And,
Fixed.
and, and yeah, it's just it doesn't work. I mean, look, there is no question that there are bad apples on the tenant side, there are bad apples on the landlord side, and you
100%.
yeah, and but both of those segments don't do well for anybody. But California currently today has 1482, which is the Tenant Protection Act, that really was designed to address egregious rent increases. And what it says is that an owner cannot raise rents, greater than CPI plus five, no greater than 10%. And that was designed to address, some of those folks that were raising rents really, beyond. And that's in place. And so, but now you've got this extreme effort to go back to the Santa Monica, Berkeley rent control, and it's counterproductive. It's going to hurt everybody.
Completely. We're at a housing shortage, and we're sitting here bantering
Right.
about like controlling production of housing, which seems
Right.
like complete cross purposes.
It is. It is. And look, Prop 33, which by the way, it's all political. I mean, it's called the Justice for Renters Act. And, a great name. It was obviously tested in an effort to try to get as many people possible to vote for it. But look, it it is the single most anti-housing legislation, since Prop 21, which is very, very similar, that we were battling, a couple of years ago, that, is also anti-housing. And it just makes no sense.
Zero, especially
Right,
with the crisis at our doorstep. So everyone talks about housing shortages. This
right,
is
right, right,
de-incentivizing any kind of development
right,
when you're
right.
telling developers what you can charge forever.
Correct, correct, correct. And I think what's amazing is that, you know, any all the studies that have been done about rent control, not only in California, but in New York, and all over the country, all over the world, basically has validated what we know in the field, and that is that rent control stifles um, new housing development. It stifles and limits the ability to keep units up to date, keep them in good repair. And the other thing that we know, and when we passed Costa-Hawkins, we actually commissioned a study that looked at the difference between Berkeley, San Francisco, and other areas in the Bay Area. And what we found in that study, and the studies have been validated even today, is that the folks that are most impacted are working class families, lower income families, because one, the housing shortage becomes more extreme. And what happens is that if a unit ever does become available, somebody moves out, this is just common sense. Housing providers are going to look for the most credit-worthy, best tenants they can possibly put into that unit. And what that, and that just creates problems for those folks that are just not, that they're having a hard time to find housing. So it, it's anti-housing, it's anti-working class folks. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on. The list goes on. Yeah.
And I think I'm following your line of thinking here, Tom. It's like, as a landlord myself, and it's you have to squeeze every dollar, maximize your rental value. After
Right.
even with AB 1482, if I can get one more dollar more in rent, I need to get that in case CPI goes down, because I can't raise rent. I can't raise rents to keep up with inflation. So I need to get the absolute top dollar for that rent, for that unit. right? Is that, I think
Right.
that's what you were alluding to.
No, correct. And expenses, whether you own a single family rental unit or whether you own a 50-unit building or whatever. I mean, look, our expenses are going up. I mean, just look at it, just look at your insurance, right? I mean,
Oh man, yeah.
I, I mean, if you haven't got your
There's
insurance
that.
bill, yeah, I mean, and that's not going to get any better. And all costs are going up. Maintenance is going up, landscaping is going up. You name it, it's going up.
I mean,
And
copper piping. I mean,
yes, yes,
right.
yes, yes, yes. And look, you know, there are a number of proposals out there. Once again, proposals that are clearly well intended. Now we've got the cooling mandates and we've got, the potential
Mhm.
necessity for air conditioning units. And I everybody gets that, but people just aren't thinking, okay, hang on a second. One, if you put in an air conditioning unit, you don't have one, then it goes everything from, okay, well, that means then that, the tenant's going to have a higher utility bill. It also means, look, the electrical capacity of some of the buildings cannot handle that. And so you have
Right.
to
I was gonna say the
brand
load on
new
the building that was built 100 years ago.
right, right. You got to put in brand new panels, you have to put in brand new wiring. I mean, the list just goes on. And it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So Prop 33, great name, Justice for Renters. I actually call it the injustice for renters because in reality, it is injustice because in the short term, it may help some people, but even in the midterm, it's going to hurt the very people that I think the proponents wanted to help.
Very good description of what's happening with 33. I think because I think a lot of folks don't understand what Costa-Hawkins is. They're like, well,
Right,
what is it? What are we saying no to? We're saying no to the repealing of something that's very important, which is the Costa-Hawkins Act, correct?
right, right. And the other thing that happened, Trevor, was after Costa-Hawkins passed, you all of a sudden saw some significant new apartment development throughout the state, particularly in the Los Angeles area, the Bay Area, because all of a sudden people felt that they could invest with some degree of confidence because the state has basically said, listen, we're not going to ban rent control, but what we are going to ban is these extreme forms of rent control that really create an anti-housing sort of philosophy at the local level. I mean, I actually believe that part of the Prop 33 is, I mean, I don't know whether it's intended, but part of me thinks it might be intended by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation as no growth. Because once this
No
passes,
growth, you say.
yeah, no growth. Because if Prop 33 passes, you're just not going to have people build any more rental housing.
Right.
And people are not going to invest in rental housing. And look, if you think the government's going to come in and provide housing, that is not going to happen. I mean, all you have to do is look at the state legislative analyst report who talked about that very fact. The state cannot afford to build the housing that's necessary for Californians. So anyway, yeah. I'm on my soapbox. Sorry about that, Trevor,
Hey,
but it's
it's your box to stand on, my friend.
all right. Okay.
You've
Okay.
earned
Okay.
it.
All right. Okay.
Well, tell us a little bit more about what are some of the significant legislative challenges facing the apartment industry in California today? Aside from what we already heard, that's massive. Is there one
Sure.
or two other ones that we're looking at that we should be aware of?
Um, I mean, what I would say is that there's always issues that come forward. I mean, I think whether you're at the local level or whether you're at the state level, there are numerous laws as it relates to the application process to, bring in a new tenant. This whole notion about you have to be very careful in terms of how you screen a prospective tenant, because there are now laws related to the use of credit reports. You have to make certain that whatever application you are using is compliant with California law, because if not, then you can find yourself with some significant penalties. And once again, it doesn't matter whether you own a single family rental unit or you own a 100-unit building. I mean, you have,
Right.
the application process is very, very difficult today. And there are laws that are trying to, you hear about this, what's it called, junk fees at the federal level. And so what you charge for, an application fee is important, because you could potentially open yourself up. You can look at security deposits. I mean, once again, security deposit, what you can charge for a security deposit, and how you have to now provide specific information on that security deposit coming up in January. I mean, Trevor, it's a new world today. It used to be,
Completely.
yeah, it used to be you could own a piece of rental property and the compliance requirements were relatively easy. But that's not the case today. At the California Apartment Association, we kind of look at it as there are three tranches. One is the application process, and there's so many steps you got to go through. You got to be careful.
So
Then
many.
there's during the tenancy. I mean, look, everything from, you need to make sure that if the locks aren't working, you have responsibility to make sure those locks are working. And, if the windows locks aren't working, got to make sure those are working. And if not, and by the way, we're not going to argue that people shouldn't have locks on their doors, because that's good owners, good management companies do that type of stuff. But the timing of how you do that, making certain that there's notification, you name it, it's all there. And then there's ending the tenancy. I mean, people get in trouble. I mean, we get probably 500 calls a month on our
500.
helpline. Yeah, probably about 500 calls a month on our
Wow.
helpline. And the number of folks that don't understand there's a very specific process for ending a tenancy. And by the way, that all changes. And I'll just, I don't want to get in trouble here, but there are some pretty extreme tenant groups that want to put as many roadblocks in the way so that owners get in trouble. And by the way, there are some good tenant groups, and we work with those folks because there is a rational basis to this. But
Big question here, Tom.
yeah.
Why?
You know, I mean, I do think that once again, there are some bad apple landlords. That's not that's less than 5% is my guess,
Right.
but they create issues, and all of a sudden somebody wants a law dealing with something that never happens. And the unintended consequence of adopting a law that has fingers out to the world, that just happens. And, I think that's why. And then then there are people who just, once again, believe that housing providers should not be getting paid to provide a housing service. They just don't believe that that's the right thing to do. And having discussions with those people, you are on a
Yeah.
different
What?
planet. You're a different
Yeah. It's like,
planet.
what's their backing? Where
Right.
you could show them financial statements and show how much you don't make or lose on our NOI, net profits.
Correct.
Small. It's
Correct.
most of it
Correct.
goes to
Correct.
taxes, insurance, repairs, everything, everything
Correct.
else.
Correct. Yeah. And look, there are local laws around the state that basically say that if you're going to sell your property, you have to first offer it to a nonprofit. You have to give the nonprofit, housing group the first opportunity to purchase that housing. Um, we've been
What cities
battling
are
this.
these? So,
Well, you clearly have San Francisco. I know Los Angeles is looking at it, and it's just, and
of
so,
course.
I mean, the intent here is, once again, nonprofits for the housing. And look, from our perspective, if 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 a nonprofit wants to purchase that property for that asking price, no problem, but you got to do it fast because you can't.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but the list goes on. But I mean, and once again, I understand, I get the rationale behind it, and I don't think anybody would oppose, but you can't slow down a transaction waiting for that to happen. They can bid just with everybody else. Anyway, it's
Right.
just, yeah, so I just think it's somewhat of a movement, that is coming after the industry because I think we're sort of the point of private property rights, and that's under attack.
We just became the targets for just it was our turn somehow.
Yeah, I mean, but once again, housing is important to everybody, and
Absolutely.
and shelter is incredibly important to folks. But there is this belief that the industry should shoulder that burden, and it shouldn't be shouldered, by everybody, which is sort of our philosophy, is that the industry should not mind paying its share, but this is a general public issue. It shouldn't just be targeted on rental property owners.
Right. And it's the private sector, no
The
less.
private sector, right? Ab
Rental, it's,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the other thing I would say is that, I think it goes back to the Prop 33, is that the efforts to stop this measure is really important for everybody. And it is political. I mean, there's no question it is political. I
no
mean,
question.
we deal with it in the California State Legislature to, help elect those folks that are rational people and that recognize the importance of the rental housing industry to provide housing. Um, and doing that political, you have to help elect those people because the other side, they're electing their people, and
All
we
day.
all day. And whether it's at the city council level, board of supervisors, state legislative level, it's political. And there's a cost associated with that, right? I mean, for us to defeat Prop 33, I would love to say that the city staff could do it, but we can't put together media ads. We can't do the social media. We can't do all the research. We can't do all the opposition research. We can't do all that. So you have to hire people to help you do that. And that costs money. But that's something the industry, it's foreign to people because people believe, wait, this is my private property rights. Well, right, but you got to stand up for your private property rights, not only voting,
Right.
but you got to make a contribution to help elect those good people and to make certain that things like Prop 33 don't pass. And
Right.
and just, yeah, it's different for the industry. It's very different. It's a new realm. I mean, I tell people today, you ought to put into your budgets. I don't know whether you want to call it political or legal or maybe both, but you should put something in.
Contingency.
Yeah, or contingency. Right, 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 right. And yeah, it's
Political
and look,
contingency.
historically, I've been doing this for a long time. Historically, a number of rental property owners just wanted to stay in the closet. They didn't want people to know they were rental property owners. Those days are completely over. Because
Gone.
one, they're going to find you because with social media and they find me all the time. But you they're going to find you, and you can't hide, because it's just not going to happen. But so you ought to just come out and fight, and vote, tell your family, tell your friends, and write that check. Sorry, that's just the reality. So yeah, I'm being
Absolutely.
pretty harsh here,
Absolutely.
Trevor. So.
It's this is like an emergency in my mind because
Yeah,
it's
no, it is. It is. It is. It is. Prop
if
33
you
cannot pass. Prop 30
cannot
cannot
pass,
pass. Yeah, it cannot pass.
cannot pass.
Cannot
Doesn't matter
pass.
if you own property for investment or even are thinking about owning it in sometime in your lifetime. In California,
Correct.
you cannot have this
Correct.
33 pass.
Correct. I mean, Trevor, the way that with the state of California would have absolutely no saying whatsoever on rent control. So what that could mean also is you have a single family home and theoretically your kids move out and maybe you want to rent a room to somebody. Local governments could basically say to you, you know what? Yeah, you can have somebody move into your, unit and, you can charge them something for that bedroom, but they could literally say, but you cannot raise their rent more than 0.1%. I mean, who knows I mean, look,
Or you can't kick them out.
oh, you can't kick them out, or
You
you
can't
can't
give
kick
them a
them out.
notice to leave. Yeah, they're there
Right,
forever until they
right,
move out.
right. Right. I mean, look, the good news under existing law today is you do have some additional rights if you have somebody in your under your home where you live and you have a
Primary residence, right?
right. But yeah, it's just a new world, and it's something that we have to fight back on.
Continuing on with Prop 33, because I really want to drive this home with the way it's written is very vague. And if you read the law, you'd be like, what is this thing? And I think that was probably done on purpose as well by
Right.
our friends over there at the AIDS Foundation. The How do you see Prop 33 affecting property owners' day-to-day operations as well as their long-term strategies? You kind
Yeah,
of talked
I
about the
mean,
long-term, but what about the day-to-day?
yeah, day to day is that you would have to immediately rethink your, budget, immediately rethink your budget, um, because, and once again, it's all based upon what city or county you live in. But you would have to immediately rethink your budget. You'd have to immediately try to get a sense as to where is a city council, um, and what might they do quickly, because we know that if Prop 33 passes, I mean, you've already got cities and counties that are already talking about immediately, doing away with vacancy decontrol and would immediately on day one, once, Prop 33 passed and it was certified, all of a sudden, your existing tenants, they move out. You're never going to be able to raise the rent to fair market value. So I would say,
Whoa.
start preparing, should 33 pass. And once again, I'm guardedly optimistic. I mean, we're sort of looking at some polling data. We're polling all the time. I'm feeling okay about 33, about defeating it, but it, you just don't know. You just don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you have to rethink, any sort of major maintenance that you're going to be doing, because you may not be able to get that back. You also have to start thinking about added costs, because if you're in a community that has rent control, you're already paying, an annual fee that ranges anywhere from 100 to, 400, $500 a unit for the administration of the rent control measure. Um, but if you're in a place like Los Angeles and you have a property that was built in 1985, I mean, I just think you have to make the assumption you're going to fall under the LARSO program, because everybody wants to move that new construction date, that exemption further. So I just think you got to be ready for that type of stuff.
How can Californians, you seem to know, like, I mean, I imagine like West Hollywood, Santa Monica, they have bills ready to sign. I'm sure that
Sure,
without
sure.
voting of any kind, I imagine. What are some of the cities or how can listeners find out if their city is one of those kind of cities that has like a secret law ready to go if Prop 33 should actually pass?
Sure. Yeah, we actually have, at CAA, the California Apartment Association, we've tracked all the cities that, have that. I can send that to you, Trevor, and, or, people can come to our website.
Yes,
And
is it on your website?
it's on our website, yeah, www.canet.org. You know, now that I said that, I'll have to pull that up so non-members can access it, but we'll let you access that. But the other stuff, that if you're a member, you can access it easily. But give me a day or two, and we'll get it up on the website for everybody else to take a look at. But yeah,
Are there any cities in there that you're like, wow, I didn't see that one coming?
um, not really. I mean, I think the other issue with this whole rent control issue is it sounds really good until people figure it out. And so,
Exactly.
but I do think what it will do also is, which is the other reason we have to defeat it, is that it would act as this emotional catalyst for, you know,
Emotional catalyst.
emotional
Really?
catalyst for different tenant groups to mobilize to try and get their city councils to adopt, these extreme forms of rent control. And and I say it's emotional because it's not practical. It may be emotional once again in the very short term for some people. And look, those people that those families, they do need assistance. There's no question about it. And nobody wants to pay, more for housing than they have to. But it's emotional because if you look at just the facts, midterm, it's an anti-housing proposal, and it's only going to create more problems for California.
More anti-housing. Yeah,
More
exactly.
anti-housing. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
We spoke a little bit about it, Tom, but I want to reiterate it. Uh, what are some of the potential unintended consequences, especially for property owners managing smaller buildings or single-family homes or condos, like you said, if Prop 33 passes?
Yeah, once again, single family, all of a sudden under rent control that was never anticipated. Folks if you just think about Los Angeles, folks that have units that were built in the mid 1980s never anticipated that they would be under rent control because of Costa-Hawkins, which said you can't place rent control under buildings that were built when Los Angeles first adopted their rent control and they have a new section exemption. They never thought it was going to happen, and it will happen. It will happen. So I think in preparation for that, once again, I think you better start looking at your budget and get ready for that because you've got registration fees, you've got, insurance, costs. I'm probably going to go up even more. I mean, you have to think about your application process. You got to rethink your security deposits. Look, a lot of us, we don't always charge the full security deposit because one, you can't,
Right.
but if all of a sudden you're going to fall under rent control, or there's a real strong likelihood of that, man, you re-look at the security deposit. And, once again, the other big issue I think is the whole maintenance issue that, if you can save that roof and you can do some additional patching, look, for us,
Right.
you know what? Make sure that roof stays good because you do not want to have to replace that entire roof. Get up there and get that roof clean. Make sure the gutters are clean so you don't have any problems because getting, I mean, those capital costs that are gonna, there's no guarantee you can pass those through under rent control. So yeah.
Right.
I
And
hate to be the person of, the negative news, but that's
uh,
what we think about. Prep.
You're stating the facts, Tom. It's
Yeah,
not. I mean, it's
yeah,
what
yeah.
people need to know. They need to understand because I'm
Right,
asked all the time here in Los Angeles, "What's Prop 33? What is that?"
right. Yep, yep,
And you're
yep,
just like,
yep.
"Oh man, And
And
it's
look, people just, I mean, once again, the other thing we found out in all of our polling, Trevor, is that, you know, even when renters figure out that this is nothing but a short-term fix, and even at that, it's questionable whether it's really a short-term fix. People get it. The problem is housing is so near and dear to everybody because it's generally the largest expense that people have, and they immediately think,
right.
well, yes, if I can just get this lowered, it'll be better. But it, you may lower it in the short term, but trying to find a new unit, that if you want to get to you go from a studio to a 1 or 2 bedroom, it's going to get even more difficult. And once again, the really sad thing is these working class families are going to be the hardest hit. Um, and because you won't have any new housing built. You won't have any new housing built.
And if you weren't building new housing, there's no reason to renovate old housing either.
Correct, correct. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And look, when the city of New York passed, what I call their extreme radical rent control, properties
Exactly.
values dropped also. I mean,
Plummeted.
they plummeted 25%. Even, even the state's legislative analyst office, said that there could be a drop in revenues because of that. But even the county assessors came out opposed to Prop 33. The county's, assessors association is now in opposition to Prop 33 because they recognize that property values will drop and people will come in and they will ask for a readjustment of their property tax. And so they're concerned about, property taxes going down. And what does that mean for other public services? I mean, this
Less
is a can
funded.
of, yeah, this is a can of worms, and the worms are not good.
They're evil.
Evil worms. There you go.
Evil worms.
Absolutely. Evil worms. Evil worms.
Uh, what? So what are some? Now we know Prop 33 is just bad. No 133 if we haven't expressed that and made that clear yet.
Right.
What are some actionable steps that property owners and managers can take to oppose 33?
Yeah, I mean, once again, people are probably being flooded with our ads. Hopefully, they're being flooded with our ads. No on 33. You're probably seeing yes on 33 ads too. Look, I mean, it
The
it,
algorithm
it
has mine pretty dialed. All I see is no
okay. You're
on
fortunate.
YouTube.
You're very fortunate. Look, I mean, money's always important, and contributing to the No on 33 campaign is really important for us. I mean, we continue to raise money as much as we can because every dollar that comes in, we're basically putting up ads. We're on social media, we're on radio, and you can only do that. And by the way, none of those folks take IOUs. They don't invoice you. It's
Oh,
COD. It's COD. But that's important. But I think the other important thing to do is, and a lot of people don't get this, is talk to your family and your friends. And that don't think that just because you own a single family rental that you are going to not be impacted by this.
right.
We found out, I mean, Trevor, we actually did a poll of single family rental property owners, and what was most disconcerting was about 30% of single family rental property owners didn't see a problem with rent control. And the reason they didn't see a problem with rent control, we actually ran a focus group, was they've never experienced it
Yeah, they've
because
had to deal with it.
they hadn't to deal with it because they've had what they thought was this thing emboldened in the Ten Commandments called single family home exemption for rent control. Well, you know, that
And it's called
that
Costa Hawkins.
it's all Costa Hawkins, right? Exactly. And we got to keep we got we got to keep that stone in place. So talk to your
Certainly
family,
do.
friends, vote no on 33.
Uh, and that's a very good way to put it. It's like there is, and I believe you touched on this, Tom, too. In Los Angeles, even in Los Angeles, single family homes are not rent controlled as of right now.
That's
Even
correct.
ones built before 1978,
Correct.
they are not rent controlled right now. And if Prop 33 passes, they will be under rent control.
Well, what happens is local governments then have the
Well,
authority to place them under rent control.
they probably
And,
are. I'm sure they have the bill ready to sign and pass.
and if you want to roll that dice, you know what?
Right. I don't even want to touch those dice.
Right, exactly, 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 exactly. So yeah. So yeah, it's, once again, people just don't think about this, that it's really Prop 33 is an anti-housing measure.
It's a housing measure.
It's an anti-housing measure and is going to particularly hurt working class families. I mean, it really is. You just look at the facts, you look at the studies, they're there. And that's why this is really, I mean, it's really a travesty of injustice to be calling this the Justice for Renters Act. It's not.
Marketing spin. That's all that
Yeah,
is.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
For those of us who like data, like I'm kind of a data nerd, do you, off the top of your head, do you can you cite a couple of those studies that show? I know there's all through time, there's plenty of economic reports and studies. I think Berkeley did one on that say that rent control does not work. And can you reference a couple of those so people can look it up and actually see the data?
Yeah, sure. UC Berkeley has done a couple studies. You have also got Stanford has a study out. Professor Diamond just came out with a study. I guess it was probably about, oh man, I want to say 2-3 years ago. But there's a big study also looking at the comparison between Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota, because St. Paul adopted extreme rent control. And I mean, new construction just went zip and values dropped zip. And so there are those studies. Yeah, and all you have to do is Google it and you will see it. But
Berkeley,
UC
Stanford,
Berkeley,
and
yep, and Stanford, no question about it.
then what was the third one, Tom? It was Minnesota. What were the two cities?
Yeah, you've actually got. I'm trying to remember who actually did the study, but they did a comparison between Minneapolis and St. Paul because
Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah, Minneapolis, St. Paul, because St. Paul adopted an extreme form of rent control about 3 years ago, and literally construction shut down, values dropped versus Minneapolis, where you saw an uptick in new development and property values held and population went up, where it's just the opposite in St. Paul. So yeah, it's a comparison between the two cities. So yeah, it's
and
then there's an MIT study also that basically showed
really
property. Yeah, MIT did a study that basically showed property values would drop 20 to 25%. And so
which is New York.
Which is New York. Yeah, I mean, it was right on target.
They were on.
They were right on target. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And for all our listeners out there, we'll hunt these studies down and drop links to it in the
I'll send them your way.
files below. Yeah, if you could, Tom, we'll make sure we put them in the description of on our posting so that these are easily accessible, so that no one has to believe us. They can look at the data.
Right, they can look at those studies. Yep, absolutely.
And Tom, before we wrap up, what's the most important key takeaway you want property owners to have about Prop 33?
Just that it's the third effort by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. If you remember, Prop 10 was similar, Prop 21 was similar, and this effort is going to continue. They are not going to back off until we, the industry, pushes back and stands up. And you got to stand up. And if you're in the closet as a rental property owner, you got to come out, and it's okay. You provide housing, And that's why 33 has to be defeated. Because if Prop 33 passes, you won't be able to provide, you won't be the housing provider that you have been.
Very succinct way of putting it, Tom. Thank you for that.
Okay.
That was very. That was. I get that. It's very relatable. And then when we wrap up, I'd like to, wrap it up a little less. We've been talking so somberly, a little more fun, and with our rapid fire round.
Okay.
Lightening up the pace a little bit here, but as we finish it up, I will ask you 6 questions. You say whatever you like about it. I'm gonna try not to comment. I have a problem with commenting. I'm working on that.
All right.
A couple years of therapy. I'm almost done with it. I almost got the interrupting thing
got
down.
it. Okay, got it. So you won't judge me.
Not going to judge you. Not going to say anything. I'm just going to nod, smile, and laugh if it's funny.
All right.
Are you ready, Tom?
Okay, I'm ready.
Rapid fire round. Question number 1. What is the best advice you have ever received?
Oh, wow. Do you want to know from who or just the advice? Okay, the advice, actually got it from my first employer where I washed dishes, of all places. Great guy. He basically said, Tom, always be kind, be generous, be humble, and trust your instincts. So, yeah.
It sounds like Master Yoda. Oh, there I am. Like Master Yoda. Fire.
Okay.
Number 2. Tom, what is your favorite failure?
My favorite failure. Wow. Probably my favorite failure. I think about this often. I did not make the junior high school basketball team, and I was determined that, and I'm not the tallest guy, but I was determined I was going to make it in high school, and so I was devastated, and so I spent, I don't know, hours on the basketball court and playing with older guys. But what I learned from that was I was never going to give up, and I made the team, by the way, in high school. So.
I was going to ask. I was.
I didn't start.
Hey, just the fact that you kept going.
Yeah, never give up.
Number 3, if you were to have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. That's an easy one. Abraham Lincoln. That guy, how he navigated so many challenges and saved the country. He'd be the guy. I mean, he had so many forces coming at him, and he saved the country. Abraham Lincoln.
It's funny when I don't comment back, huh? It's just odd. What's your hobby? What is one of your hobbies that most people probably don't know about?
Oh, well, until last year, and I stopped last year, I'm a skydiver. And so, yeah, so I'm a skydiver. But I stopped last year, and so I figured, 200 plus jumps, that's enough. So, yeah.
No, I'm just going to say this. That's badass. I mean, that is. I've done it. Yeah.
Okay.
2 more.
Okay.
What's a habit that you, Tom, employ to set you up for success each day?
For each day for success, I I'm I'm a team guy, and so every day I talk to the team here at CAA, and I run things by them, because I have this belief that the more people that are thinking about things, the better heads they are. And asking them the questions is really important in presenting stuff, but also listening to them. So that's my habit. I ask questions and I listen. I try. Busy times, but I really always try to listen because people have marvelous perspectives on things.
Number 6 and final question. What's the best gift you have ever received?
Oh, wow. Um, I actually carry it with me. Um, I carry it with me. The day that my son got married, about a half an hour before then, I was helping him get his bow tie tied, and I gave him a hug and I said, "You're going to do great." And he handed me a note, and he basically said, and what the note said was, "Dad, I appreciate everything you have taught me about life. I can never thank you enough." So I keep
That's
that note.
awesome.
Yeah. So that's,
Do you have it on you right now?
yeah, I do. Yeah,
that's,
I do. Yeah, I do.
that's
I do.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to put it in
you were an
plastic.
awesome father, Tom, because that doesn't just happen.
Well, I got a great son and daughter. So yeah,
it must be very proud. Well,
thank you. Thank
Tom,
you.
that is the end of our show. Are there any final thoughts, last things you would like to say to our vast audience here in California about Prop 33 or anything to do with the California Apartment Association?
Yeah, just, get out and vote no, talk to your friends, your family. It's critical that this measure go down for everybody, not just you as owners, but for everybody in the state of California. And thank you.
100%. No on Prop 33, everyone.
You got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Trevor.
your time, Tom. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.